Good evening. Welcome to Hasta las Ocho, your half hour of local and regional news, features, weather, and other information. I'm Mike Clifford. Colorado is one of a handful of states in the country that prohibits the sale of full-strength beer and wine in grocery stores. A coalition of residents and supermarkets is trying to change that. Rocky Mountain Community Radio Station KRCC's Holly Pretsky reports.
The organization Your Choice Colorado is launching its 75 Stores in 75 Days initiative. Representatives from the campaign will visit grocery stores around the state to talk to locals about changing Colorado liquor laws. Your Choice Colorado spokesman Matt Chandler calls the laws leftover byproducts of prohibition.
Frankly, consumers already want these products, and it's about delivering what they want to them.
A measure has failed multiple times at the State House. Critics say a change in the laws could cost local liquor stores business. The organization wants to have a proposal to lift the ban on November's ballot. For KRCC News, I'm Holly Pretsky.
Critics to this change in the laws also say that it would be harder for smaller breweries, craft breweries, and brew pubs to get their product into grocery stores than it is in the liquor stores as things are now. Smoking. Going to smoking from drinking is not only bad for your health, but it can also take a heavy toll on your wallet. In New Mexico, the average smoker pays about $30,000 a year, which can add up to $1.5 million over a lifetime. Mark Richardson helps us see where those figures come from.
We all know smoking cigarettes is an unhealthy habit, but have you ever thought about just how much money it costs a person over their lifetime? New research compiled by the online survey company WalletHub determined the average cost of each of America's 66 million tobacco users is between $24,000 and $50,000 a year, depending on where they live. Jill Gonzalez with WalletHub says over a lifetime, that can add up to more than $1 million.
A lot of times it's not something that you think about, just investing $5, $6, all the way up to $12 a day into the stock market. But that's how much money you could be earning. So forget the Powerball, this could be a one-stop shop for you if you just quit smoking.
Gonzalez says over 50 years of smoking, the average user will spend between $1.2 and $2.4 million, depending on where they live and purchase their smokes. WalletHub made the calculations based on buying one pack of cigarettes a day, plus healthcare expenses, lost income, and other financial factors associated with smoking. She says in New Mexico, smokers pay a fairly high cost for their habit compared to people in other states.
New Mexico is going to be on the more expensive side here, 30th out of the 51 places that we did look at. That's upwards of $30,000 per year. That's going to be $1.5 million over 50 plus years.
Gonzalez says if the cost of smoking doesn't get your attention, consider these statistics. The average smoker who starts at age 18 will only live to age 69, and tobacco-related illnesses kill about 500,000 Americans each year. For New Mexico News Connection, I'm Mark Richardson.
Sharp-eared listeners may have noticed that yesterday we failed to bring you our regular Monday feature, H2O Radio's This Week in Water. And the reason for that was a technical difficulty with my brain. I forgot to take care of that. So we'll bring it to you today. And we do try and bring it to you every Monday, and if not, on Tuesday, right here on KRZA.
New outbreak of old virus alarms scientists. That and other stories for the week ending January 24th, 2016. I'm Jamie Sudler.
I'm Franny Halperin, and it's This Week in Water.
Scientists are sounding the alarms over the spread of a mosquito-borne virus called Zika. While some who are infected may suffer mild symptoms such as a fever and rash, much more severe problems can occur.
The virus has been linked to serious birth defects, and doctors in Brazil, where up to 1 million people may be infected, now say it could be causing a rare syndrome that can leave victims almost completely paralyzed for weeks.
The disease is spreading in South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. And recently there have been cases diagnosed in New York, Illinois, and Florida.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is warning pregnant women to postpone travel to areas where they could be at risk of exposure.
Scientists are trying to determine if there's a link between the virus and global warming. The species of mosquito that spreads Zika thrives in warm and wet climates, and rising temperatures could lead to the insects multiplying and spreading to areas where they typically have not been before.
Currently, there is no vaccine against the Zika virus, and the only protection is to prevent mosquito bites in the first place. There were significant developments last week about the water crisis in Flint, Michigan.
The regional director of the Environmental Protection Agency resigned amid reports that her office knew about the lead poisoning in April last year, but did not alert the public.
A spokesman for the agency admitted that it didn't act as fast as it should have.
It's also been learned that an EPA water expert, Miguel del Toro, noticed possible problems with Flint's drinking water in February last year, which he later verified. He then wrote an internal memo in June, but EPA still did not sound any alarms.
Michigan radio reports that Del Toro was first alerted to Flint's water problems by a homeowner, Leanne Walters, who called to warn the agency about her child being diagnosed with lead poisoning.
Walters told the EPA official that Flint did not have a program to prevent pipe corrosion that caused the lead to contaminate the water. The state of Michigan, however, had told the EPA that it did.
It was announced last week that another federal agency, Health and Human Services, will investigate the government's response to the disaster.
Snowzilla. The massive blizzard that hit the U.S. East Coast has moved on, but not before affecting nearly 80 million people, causing deaths and shutdowns in 10 states.
Jonas, the official name of the storm, hit Friday through early Sunday, leaving record amounts of snowfall.
Nearly 30 inches fell in New York, Baltimore, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, more than have ever been recorded. A town in West Virginia had the most, 40 inches.
Coastal flooding in parts of New Jersey was worse than during Superstorm Sandy. High tides sent chunks of ice flowing down roads.
Joe Rahm, a writer with Think Progress, suggested that naming the storm Jonas wasn't quite accurate, and he proposed instead calling it Edward Snowden, because it turned Washington upside down, brought the government to a standstill, and then fled the country.
Shrinking ice in the Arctic is opening travel between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But research vessels and icebreakers aren't the only ones making the journey. Birds and marine species are moving between waters too, with unknown consequences.
Seabird McKeon, a marine biologist with the Smithsonian, told CBS News that thick sea ice usually blocks migration because animals need access to the ocean's surface to breathe, and diving birds need open waters to feed.
But a decline in sea ice is allowing species to roam to new waters, and the resulting impacts are yet to be understood. While some species might be able to establish themselves in new environments without disrupting ecosystems, there could be cases where newcomers will compete for food or other resources.
For example, gray whales, normally found only in the Pacific, have been spotted off the coast of Namibia in southern Africa and even near Israel.
According to Elizabeth Alter from the City University of New York, these migrations could affect ecosystems because gray whales are ocean engineers. They scoop up mouthfuls of mud and act like bulldozers, moving around nutrients so other marine creatures and seabirds can use them.
Speaking of things moving around our seas, in other marine news, we've all heard about the whirling garbage patches, but according to a new study, by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans.
A report by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation found that every year at least 8 million tons of plastic leak into the sea, which is equivalent to dumping the contents of one garbage truck into the ocean every minute.
Ellen MacArthur, who broke the record for the fastest solo circumnavigation of the globe in 2005, says that a moonshot approach is needed where we replace plastics overall by creating ones that biodegrade or are recycled more easily.
And finally, lots of serious science is happening at the International Space Station.
Take astronaut Scott Kelly, who's spending a year in space to help gauge the effects of weightlessness on the human body in order to understand the feasibility of sending humans to Mars.
Kelly has broken the American record for the longest consecutive days in space, and he's done a lot of cutting-edge research on zero gravity. He's cultivated and eaten space lettuce and grown flowering plants. Important achievements for life on another planet.
But before he returns to Earth this spring, he had another item on his to-do list: play ping pong.
Play ping pong with a water bubble, to be more precise.
In a YouTube video, Kelly gently and slowly tosses a sphere of water between two paddles coated with Teflon.
While water on Earth is pulled down by gravity and spreads out to fill whatever container it's in, water in space floats in the shape of a ball.
Hey, if you're going to be headed to Mars, we're guessing the in-flight magazine will only take you so far, and Netflix might be iffy.
So water ping pong? That'll be a ball. This Week in Water is sponsored by the American Waterworks Association. Sustainable water management means more than just conservation. Learn more at awwa.org/sustainable16.
Thanks to our friends at H2O Radio for another edition of This Week in Water. And yes, we do plan to have that for you again Monday here on KRZA. Aaron Jones thought the answers were written in stone, but a summer internship at a remote dinosaur quarry eroded her certainty. Wyoming Public Radio's Human Nature brings us the story.
He said, well, your science is based as much on faith as my religion is. How could you know exactly how old these fossils are? You're trusting that other people have done the good science. And so that's the same as my religion.
From Wyoming Public Media, this is Human Nature, real stories where humans and our habitat meet. I'm Caroline Ballard. In this episode, we'll hear about a woman who thought the answers were written in stone. Erin Jones had just finished her freshman year of college.
And I just really wanted to do something totally different from where I was.
So Erin looked for a summer job out west, and she landed an internship at a tiny dinosaur quarry in Utah.
This part of Utah is part of the San Rafael Swell, which is this huge part of southern desert Utah that just pushes up.
Almost like the earth is broken open to reveal layers of ancient geology.
And there were just so many canyons that just kind of like curved around, and you can see all these things that normally you can't see as a result. And so we found in the fossil record that this area where this quarry is the largest concentration of Jurassic dinosaur bones anywhere, ever. And the weird thing about it is that it's almost entirely carnivores, specifically Allosauruses, which is kind of like a precursor to the T-Rex. And it's almost entirely juvenile Allosauruses, like teenage ones. So it's really strange.
You ended up working there for a summer.
Yeah.
And you were working there with two other women.
So we lived on this trailer lot. We each had a trailer to ourselves. And their names were Josie and Monica. Monica was from North Carolina and Josie was from Wisconsin. Both of them were older than me. I was the baby of the group at 19. And yeah, so we lived in these trailers, and then in Price, Utah, which is a itty-bitty town smack dab in the middle of Utah, desert Utah. And we had to drive over 40 miles to work every day. So in Utah, there are these Mormons who are traditional Mormons who belong to the LDS Church, which is Latter-day Saints. But I remember on our first day, we were driving out from Price to the quarry, and Mike, the boss, was driving. So Josie and Monica and I were all in the truck with him. And we just were passing this really, really dry landscape with mesas everywhere. The sky was all hazy because of fires. And we drove down this long highway on the way out to the dirt road. And before we turned off onto the dirt road, we passed a road going in the opposite direction. And he said, don't ever go down that road. And we said, well, why not? And he said, because there's this really tiny itty-bitty town. You won't find it on a map. It's called Heaven, Utah. And we were like, well, that sounds great. Why wouldn't we want to go to heaven, you know? and he said, well, because it's an FLDS community, which stood for Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints, which aren't technically a part of the LDS Church, and they are polygamous. And we were like, oh, that's fascinating. We've never met anyone who was polygamous before. And he said, well, you don't want to go there if you're not FLDS because it's sort of cultish. And if you show up there, There have been cases where if you were a man, you got shot, and if you're a woman, then you get kidnapped.
So heaven was off limits. At the dinosaur quarry, Erin's job, along with her 2 coworkers, was to lead tours.
Yeah, so we got 10 visitors in a day was a lot. So most of the time we were kind of all by ourselves, but because people, had to drive 13 miles down a dirt road to find us. But when they did find us, it was either tourists, and they just had done their research especially well, and so they came out to see us. And so those were always fun to meet because those were people from all over the world. And then we also met a lot of Utahns who had been meaning to check it out for a long time. So they were from Salt Lake, a lot of them, or Provo, or Park City, or whatever. And then we also had this totally unusual and strange category of visitor that was creationists.
Specifically, young Earth creationists who believe in the literal creation account in Genesis. So the world was created in 7 days about 6,000 years ago.
And that was just totally foreign to me. I had never seen anything. I mean, I'm from Texas, and so I've met some creationists, but I never knew that there's a particular brand of creationist that really likes to seek out these places that, to those of us who are not creationists, feel like evidence of not creationism, of evolution. And so one particular day, we had a tour bus of 40 people from San Diego. There's a huge enclave of very active creationists north of San Diego. And so this tour bus, they were going around the Southwest. They'd already gone to the Grand Canyon. They went to these parts of the Southwest where rocks are really exposed and you can see this geological history. And they came to us and saw these dinosaur bones. And all 40 of them came in, and Josie gave them a tour. And so I stayed behind because Josie really loved talking to creationists. She really loved this moment when she could say, oh, these are 150 million years old. And just she took this glee in watching them just be like, oh, just be mad. And so she took them on the tour, but the preacher stayed behind and talked to me at the front desk. And so I got into a conversation with him, and I just felt sort of belligerent that day, I think. And so I said, these dinosaur fossils are 150 million years old. And he said, have you determined that with your own eyes and with your own hands? And I just kind of looked at him, and he said, are you a scientist? And I said, well, I'm a college student. And he said, well, your science is based as much on faith as my religion is, because you haven't personally examined these with your hands. You haven't personally examined these things with your eyes. You aren't the one who determined these half-lives of various elements. And so how could you know exactly how old these fossils are? You're trusting that other people have done the good science. And so that's the same as my religion. And for years, I didn't have an answer to that.
Do you have an answer now?
I think, so since then, because I didn't know what to say to him, I've sought out an answer in asking scientists that I know. I know a paleontologist here in town who studies dinosaur fossils, very similar to what I was doing in Utah. And I asked her one time, I said, what is your answer to people who don't believe in evolution? What is your answer to people who don't believe in half-lives, that are how we determine how old things are? And she didn't have a clear answer either. And so eventually I said, but how do you determine a half-life? She's like, that's chemistry. That's not so much what I do. And so I said, so I have to track down another scientist to find that out. And ultimately, I think it is a sort of faith, like you're trusting that other scientists have done their work well. But I think that the difference in the types of faith are that there's a faith for scientists where you could, if you wanted to, learn how to do that process. You could do it yourself. And for religion, there's a mystery in that you can't do it yourself. And I think the mystery is what makes the difference. The creationists are getting the story of their creation from history as opposed to natural history from words and from paper, from the Bible. So I think that if you're looking at the world with words as your main lens, then perhaps when you go to a place like the Grand Canyon, you see something different than what I might see.
After weeks in the desert, Erin needed a change of scenery, so she headed to a nearby national forest in the mountains.
And I came to this fork in the road, and there wasn't a sign, and I hadn't looked it up before I left, and it was before Google Maps, and so I didn't know which way to turn. And so I turned right, and it started to rain, and it was one of the first rains of the season, and so I was just in heaven about this rain. And so I rolled down the window, and I was like breathing in this like amazing desert rain ozone smell, and I was just really enjoying it. And I kept driving, and then I realized I was not in a national forest. I was in this really tiny town, and the roads were in really rough shape. They were all potholed, and they kind of dead-ended at some point, and there were no houses. It was all trailers. There were no businesses at all. And I thought about where I was, and I realized that I had ended up in Heaven, Utah. So I kind of looked around and I thought, I don't think I'm going to get kidnapped, and I don't think anyone's going to shoot me. This just seems kind of sad. The cars that I saw were all really old. Some of them were on cinder blocks, instead of wheels. And it seemed very poor. The yards weren't really yards. They weren't like gardens or like lawns. It was just sort of like mud and dirt. And so I turned around and I drove back to the national forest.
So you were 19 and, as you put it, arrogant or belligerent.
Aren't all 19-year-olds?
So how did it change sort of how you related to other people? Did it change that?
Yes. And while I was there, I got to be friends with some Mormons, too, in the town of Price. And I think that at the time I felt like, I'm this really progressive, open-minded person, but, like, I'm so prejudiced against Mormons. And when I got there, that really became clear to me. How can I call myself an open-minded, progressive, unprejudiced person if I'm so prejudiced against this group of people? And living there and meeting people, the same as it does for any groups. Once you live somewhere and meet some people that are just human beings, then you realize they're not a crazy group of people. And so I think it challenged me to take a big look at myself and say, do I truly want to be open-minded? And if so, maybe I actually should try. So one time, Monica and I were working in the quarry, and we had no visitors, and we were eating lunch under this cottonwood tree that was in front of the museum, because it was the only shade for like miles, And it was a really hot day, and she got up to go use the bathroom, which were like pit toilets that we had to clean every now and then. And while she was gone, I decided to climb the tree, and and then I was still in the tree when she came back, and she couldn't see me, and I didn't say anything for some reason. And she was from North Carolina, and she said, "Lord Jesus, the rapture has come, and I have been left." And I just started laughing, and I said, "No, we're both still here." Everybody else might have left, but we're still here.
Everybody is wondering what and where they all came from. Everybody is worrying about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. But no one knows for certain, and so it's all the same to me. I think I'll just let the mystery be.
Our storyteller was Erin Jones, who happens to also be one of our producers. This is her last episode with us. She's heading off on a new adventure, so we wish her happy trails. If you have a story to tell, get in touch through our website, humannaturepodcast.org. And if you like the show, leave a comment, give us a rating on iTunes, or share it with your friends. I'm Caroline Ballard. The show is produced by Ryan Oberhelman and Aaron Jones. Anna Rader is our digital producer. Our senior producer is Micah Schweitzer. The theme song is by Caught a Ghost. Human Nature is a production of Wyoming Public Media.
It's human nature.
Some calendar items. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has been involved in fire mitigation efforts along North and South Crestone Creeks on the Baca National Wildlife Refuge. Prescribed burns will occur during the period of January 25th through March 18th. Adjacent neighbors and towns should be aware of plumes of smoke temporarily generated as a result of this prescribed burning. Any neighbors or individuals that may require special consideration or assistance in the event that unplanned smoke issues arise are encouraged to call the refuge manager at 719-256-5527. The Rio Frio Ice Fest kickoff party is this Friday, January 29th. The kickoff party will be at the Grove Theater in Alamosa from 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. You don't have to worry about admission because it's free. Live music, handmade burritos, adult beverages, snow cones, hot chocolate, and racer packets will all be available at the Rio Frio Ice Fest kickoff party. You can bring seeds to share and donate at the Community Seed Exchange from 12 p.m. until 2 p.m. this Sunday, January 31st, in the Adams State University Nielsen Library. The free Seed to Seed event will include a potluck, servingware, and dessert is provided. For more information, you can call 719-587-7174. Weather. In north central New Mexico tonight, mostly clear, lows 5 below to 5 above zero. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, not as cold, highs in the 30s to lower 40s, north winds 10 to 15 miles an hour in the morning. Tomorrow night through Thursday, partly cloudy, lows 0 to 20, highs in the mid 30s to lower 40s. Friday, mostly sunny, highs in the upper 30s to mid 40s. Friday night, partly cloudy, lows 15 to 25. Saturday, mostly sunny, breezy, highs in the lower to mid 40s. Saturday night, partly cloudy, lows in the 20s. Sunday, mostly cloudy with a slight chance of rain and snow showers. Breezy, highs in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Sunday night, partly cloudy with a slight chance of rain and snow showers. Breezy, highs in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Sunday night, partly cloudy with a chance of snow showers. Breezy, lows 15 to 25. Monday, mostly cloudy with a chance of snow showers in north central New Mexico. Breezy, highs in the lower to mid 30s. In the San Luis Valley, tonight mostly clear, lows 9 below to 2 above zero, light winds. Tomorrow, sunny, highs in the lower to mid 30s, light winds. Tomorrow night, mostly clear, lows 2 below to 6 above zero, light winds. Thursday, mostly sunny, highs in the mid to upper 30s, light winds. Thursday night and Friday, partly cloudy, lows 2 to 12, highs near 40. Friday night and Saturday, mostly cloudy, lows 9 to 18, highs near 40. Saturday night, mostly cloudy with a 10% chance of snow, lows 16 to 23. Sunday, partly sunny with a 20% chance of snow, highs in the upper 30s. Sunday night and Monday in the San Luis Valley, mostly cloudy with a 30% chance of snow, lows 9 to 16, highs near 30. Thanks for being here for Hasta las Ocho this evening. I'm Mike Clifford, and I'll be back tomorrow evening at 7:30 with local and regional news, features, weather, and more. And I'll be back tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock for A las Ocho. I hope you can join me.